Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Dennis Brown, and this is my Monday Freight Broker Bootcamp live training. It's April 1st. It is April Fool's Day. I contemplated actually trying to do an April Fool's joke on you guys, but I'm not that creative. So here's what I decided to do. I'm going to tell you a story about how I was able to land as a freight broker when I owned my freight brokers, how I was able to land a client, a shipping client that ended up doing over $500,000 in business with us with just 2 phone calls. All right. So if you're interested in hearing that, tune in, lean in, listen in. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the agenda. First, we're going to do the training, right? First of all, I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to give you 3 tips at the end, right? 3 lessons that you should learn from that story. So we're going to go through that first. Then maybe we'll do live Q, or maybe we'll do a free giveaway, Freightpreneur t-shirt, or maybe some cash. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to base it on time and how interested you guys are in getting some free swag. And then number 3, we're going to do live Q&A. So at the end of this, we're going to do live Q&A. All right. So if you stick around to the end, you can ask me any questions about this story or the lessons or freight broker sales or how to get shippers or how to become a freight broker, freight agent, whatever questions are on your mind, I will do my absolute best to try to answer those for you. Again, it is Monday, April 1st. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Hit me up in the comments with the city and state that you're logging in from. I'd love to give you some shout outs. We're going to do that first, let some people get live, and then we're going to go from there. Okay. So cool. Cynthia Moore, welcome from Maryland. Crystal Neese from Pittsfield, Maine, welcome. Shaka from Hope Mills, North Carolina. Jason from Minnesota. Kevin Perry from Raleigh, North Carolina. Jomo Mighty from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Jafini Christian, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, from Ripley, Mississippi. Brandon from Louisiana. Mark Neese from Pittsfield, Maine. Ulad Zamir from Minsk, Belarus. Beatrice from Bremerton, Washington. Felicia from Phoenix. Charity from Tallahassee, Florida. Welcome, Corey from Billings, Montana. Gary Allison, welcome. Good morning. Gerald from Detroit, Michigan. We got people from all over the place, even other countries, as you can see, joining. I do these lives every Monday at noon. So I would urge you, take out your cell phone. Okay. Take out your cell phone and set a reminder, right? Set a reminder in your cell phone for 11:45 a.m. Eastern time every Monday to check your email, because you're going to get a link to one of these lives. All right. So it's just a great way to remind yourself so you don't miss these lives. Of course, if you do miss the live, you can always come back on the replay. You can always check out my YouTube channel where I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of free freight broker and freight agent training videos that you guys can check out. So let's continue with a few more shout outs, and then we'll get the show on the road here. Jim Hand, welcome, my friend. Always contributing to the conversation. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So I got a lot of notes. I got a story to tell you, but then I also have 3 lessons that you need to learn from this. You need to apply to your freight broker sales efforts. Okay. So we're going to let a few more people get live. I'm going to grab a quick drink, and then we're going to get this show on the road. Oh, boy. Let's see here. Make sure my phone is off on Do Not Disturb. People get really pissed at me when it's not. Make sure my computer's on Do Not Disturb. Hey, we're ready to go. All right. What time is it? All right. So we're going to give it about another minute. Case Transportation from Carson, California. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I know you guys are very busy. I truly appreciate you taking the time. Do me a huge favor. If you want me to continue doing these free freight broker trainings every Monday at noon, okay? The price of admission, all I ask from you right now is this: 2 simple things. 1, hit the like button, okay? Just hit the like button wherever you're at. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're at, hit the like button. And then number 2, share the stream. If you're on Facebook, super simple. Just share the stream. If you're on LinkedIn, just repost it. Click repost. Bing, bang, boom. Costs you nothing. Takes you 7 seconds. And it helps us out because, again, I would tell you that, 9 out of 10 of the customers that have come into our Freight Broker Bootcamp and our Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program all came from word of mouth or people sharing on social. Okay. So truly appreciate your help. We don't do a lot of paid ads, we like to kind of build that relationship through these lives and through the free trainings. And so I hope you guys can do that for me. That's the price of admission today. And let's get the show going here. Here's again the notes. I've got a couple pages of notes to hit, but let me just quickly review. All right, cool. All right, so if you're sick and tired of getting rejected when you're doing freight broker sales and freight broker cold calling, right? You need to lean in. I want you to lean in. I mean, if you're tired of hearing, oh, we're not interested, or we don't do business with brokers, or call us back in 6 months, right? Or another one, we're happy with our current provider, okay? Or worse yet, just send us an email. If you're sick and tired of hearing those things, I want you to lean in, because I'm going to tell you a quick story of how I was able to get a $500,000 client in just 2 phone calls. So I'm going to tell the exact steps to that story, exactly how I did that, how that transpired. And then at the end, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to share with you 3 lessons, 3 tips that you can pull from that. All right. So stick around to the end. Again, I'm going to share those tips with you, but the story starts like this. It was about 2007, 2008. I'm not sure the exact date. And I had just joined LinkedIn not long before that. And so I was on LinkedIn, and I noticed that one of the prospects that was on my list, my cold calling list, one of the companies that was on my cold calling list, I found the shipping manager on LinkedIn. And so I got on his profile. I did a little bit of research on his profile. I went to the company website. I learned a little bit about the company. They were in the steel industry. The gentleman they were in the Philadelphia area. The gentleman was about in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. And so I decided to send him a LinkedIn connection request. I sent him a message on LinkedIn, and the message went something like this. It said, "Hi, Bill. I see you're in logistics. I also noticed that you're in Philadelphia. Who do you will win this year? Who do you think will win this year? The Buffalo Bills or the Philadelphia Eagles? Curious if you're open to connecting." That was the basic premise of the message. I don't know if that's the exact wording, because I couldn't pull it up from over a decade ago, but that was the basic premise of the message. And so fortunately, luckily, he saw the message and responded very quickly, responded back not long later. And his opinion, obviously, he accepted my connection request, sent a message back, and basically said that the Eagles were going to kill the Bills. Philadelphia was going to beat the Buffalo Bills. And we had some fun banter back and forth for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Some messages went back and forth where we were kind of having some fun and joking and kind of, just talking smack, you could say, a little bit about football, right? Like a lot of guys would do, if they just met somebody or maybe they were out for coffee or lunch. And so we were going back and forth on LinkedIn talking about football of all things, right? We weren't focused on business. It was focused more upon something that was important to him and something that was relevant to me. And so I got sick and tired of typing back and forth. So I suggested, hey, listen, why don't we finalize this? Why don't we finish this? Why don't we settle this once and for all and just jump on a quick phone call? So he agreed to jump on a phone call. We got on the phone shortly after, and the call lasted about 15 minutes, right? And so for 13 of those 15 minutes, I pretty much just listened and asked a few questions. He talked all about how he got his job. He talked about his company. He talked about football. He talked about his family. He talked about a whole bunch of things in that short period of time. And I learned a lot because I listened. Okay. And so for the first 13 minutes of that call, it was all about him. Right. And we talked just about him. And then at the end of the phone call, he's like, "Hey, Dennis, listen, I got to run, but I noticed on LinkedIn that you had started a logistics company not long ago. What exactly do you do? What do you do?" And so rather than me beating him over the head with the pitch, I simply explained to him, I said, "Listen, you've heard of XYZ company," and they were a direct competitor of theirs. And he said, "Sure, I've heard of them." I said, "Well, they hired us to do A, B, and C. And we've been working with them for several years now. And that's exactly what we do. And he said, oh, so you're a freight broker? I said, yeah, that's exactly what we do. He said, oh, great. And, we kind of left it at that. And I had asked for permission to follow up with him. And he said, yeah, follow up with me in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be gone, but give me a call in a couple of weeks. And, and so we had kind of set a soft appointment in a couple of weeks, but he had given me permission to call him. Okay. So unfortunately, I forgot to call him. Believe it or not, I scheduled the follow-up in my CRM, right? But for whatever reason, I didn't make the phone call. I didn't follow up with him. Okay. I know it's a cardinal sin and I make mistakes too, right? But oddly enough, fortunately enough, a couple weeks after we were supposed to make the call, maybe it was about 30 days after the initial call, I get a phone call out of left field, and it's the gentleman from Philadelphia. It's Bill. And Bill says, hey, Dennis, you remember me? And I said, yeah, of course I remember you, Bill. We started talking and he said, listen, you're a freight broker. You do logistics, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, I have a problem. And that led to us discussing his problem, discussing some of his issues, which then led to them doing business with us. And over the next several years, we did over $500,000 in business with that company. Now, I tell you this story because I want you to understand a couple of things. There are 3 key lessons that you need to take from this story. There are probably a bunch more, but 3 key ones that I want you to pull from this story. So I want you to lean in really quick and listen, because this is really, really important. Now, there's a couple things that happen during this that you have to dissect, that you have to kind of pull apart. The first one, I kind of understated on the front end because I didn't want to give it away, but I started this engagement by gathering sales intelligence on not only the company, but on the prospect. So I went to the company website. I did a search on Google for the company. I gathered some information about their products. I gathered maybe a little bit of an origin story about the company. I knew who the leadership of the company was, like the CEO and the CFO. I went to his profile on LinkedIn. I saw how long he had been with the company, his title, some of the interest that he had. I was able to see things that he was posting on LinkedIn. And so ultimately, I gathered sales intelligence up front before doing the outreach. Now, gathering that sales intelligence and knowing that he was from Philadelphia, knowing that he was a male, knowing that he was in his late 30s, early 40s, I took a gamble on the whole Buffalo Bills versus Philadelphia Eagles hook, the sales hook. So I created a sales hook using some of the psychographics and some of the sales intelligence that I was able to gather during my pre-call research. All right. So number one, I gathered sales intelligence. Number two, I was different. Right? I was sounded different, acted different than every other sales call, every other freight broker that had been calling them for the past weeks, months, years, because I used something that was very relevant to him. And I created a compelling sales hook that started a dialogue, right? Now, there could have been a million different things I could have done there. I just chose that one strategy because, number one, you got to remember something. Back in 2007, I was brand new to LinkedIn, right? And I had no idea what social selling was all about, but I took a risk and it paid off. But ultimately, what I learned about that is the importance of being different. Okay. So I created a compelling sales hook and I was different. The third lesson that I want you to pull from this, right, is this. And that is the entire time that I was in that dialogue through LinkedIn and over the phone, my focus was on building a relationship and not a transaction. So when we were talking about football, that was all relationship and rapport building. When we got on the phone and he talked for the first 13 of the 15 minutes of the phone call and it was all about him, that was me investing in that relationship, gathering information, right? And building rapport by asking a few simple questions that then led him to telling me a whole bunch of information that was extremely valuable to me in an effort to try to develop a customer relationship. But the personal relationship came first. So I focused on the relationship over the transaction. Now, where most people, as soon as they got on the phone with that prospect, they would have beat them over the head with their club, right? And they would have hit them with their sales pitch, and they would have driven him away because he's heard that too many times before. And when, so those are a few of the lessons that I want you to learn from this. Again, one, I gathered sales intelligence before the call, right? Number two, I created a compelling sales hook using that sales intelligence to be different. And number three, I focused on relationships over transactions, right? I didn't get in a hurry. I didn't push him away. I didn't drive him away by beating him over the head with my club, which could have easily happened, and which is one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest reasons why new freight brokers and even established freight brokers fail when they do cold outreach, whether that cold outreach be via phone or via email or via LinkedIn. Okay, so those are the 3 tips. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Listen, if you did, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share the stream. And if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, and you're just looking for some help to get started, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students, had that program for over a decade. I've personally done over $200 million as a freight broker, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. Now, if you're looking for specific coaching on freight broker sales and how to get shippers, right? If you're looking for that type of coaching, if you're looking for that type of a program, what I want you to do, I'm going to suggest you check out my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. That is my freight broker sales coaching program where I take that piece of my brain, everything about freight broker sales strategies, tactics, tools, everything that helped me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. And I share that with you in a coaching program. Now, that program is sold out. It's closed. You can't enroll right now, but you can get on the wait list, right? You can get on the wait list by simply going to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. You'll get on the wait list. You'll be the first to get notified. It is not a free program. It is not a cheap program, but it's worth 20x whatever you invest into it. Okay. So check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. All right, cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed that quick story. And I hope that you were able to garner a little bit of knowledge from that you could apply to your freight broker sales efforts. Okay. Because I hear a lot of people talking about how cold calling doesn't work and cold emailing doesn't work and LinkedIn doesn't work. Well, I am here to tell you that that's 100% wrong. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. I would tell you that probably 9 out of 10, if not more, freight brokers and freight agents are doing it the wrong way, right? It's all about transactions. It's all about mass messaging. It's all about a one-size-fits-all approach. And that doesn't work. Not today. I don't know if it ever worked, but it definitely doesn't work today. Okay? So I hope you guys were able to garner something from that. Listen, do me a huge favor. Hit me up in the comments and let me know 1 to 10, the value of this training, how much you like this training, how you feel about this training now that we went through the simple training. And then we're going to maybe do a giveaway and we're going to jump into Q&A. So hold tight if you guys want to stick around for the Q&A because I'm going to hang around to the end. Hold your questions. But listen, before that, hit me up 1 to 10. 1 meaning, hey, Dennis, your story was bullshit. This sucked and you're terrible. To, hey, this was a 10 or an 8 or 9 or a 10. I loved it. This is what I learned. Truly appreciate any feedback you have. I want to make sure that I'm serving you and that you're getting the value that you deserve and need in order to become a successful freight broker or freight agent. So hit me up in the comments and let me know. Timothy Quirk, different is better than better. My man has heard it many times. Trust me. Tim says, I love rejection because I get it so often. I know. Right? But most people can't handle that, right? But most people get a lot more rejection than they need to get because they take that one-size-fits-all approach. Oh, hi, my name's Dennis. I'm with XYZ Logistics, and we can help you save money, and we've got some trucks in your area. and I was wondering if you might be able to just send me over a bid package, or I might be able to quote on some of your freight. Dead, dumb, horrible. Please stop. You're killing yourself, right? It's just unnecessary torture. There's a better way, guys. There's a better way. You don't have to get punched in the face 100 times a day before you learn how to duck. Okay? I can teach you how to duck. Okay? I promise you, I can teach you how to navigate that sales process. So if you guys want to get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. Feedback. All right, cool. Charity, thank you so much. Joe, you can catch the replay on this, buddy. I told a story about how I was able to get a $500,000 shipping customer in just 2 phone calls. So you can check that out. You can catch the replay on this for sure. Okay. Anybody that missed the beginning. Cynthia, thank you so much. Jomo, thank you. Felicia, Gary, Zoran. Awesome. Cool. All right. Listen, I'm glad you guys found value in this. The story is amazing. The story is great. I'm very blessed. I have many, many stories like that. And I'm going to start telling you more and more of these stories of sales stories and stories specific to my brokerage and things that happened during that time, or it's just some entrepreneurial lessons that are kind of focused on in a story format. So I'm going to start doing a lot more of that. I think it's important and valuable. But what I want you to understand is the lessons that you can take from this. 1, don't make a cold call without gathering sales intelligence. Okay. Number 2, be different. Figure out a way to be different. If you sound like everybody else, you're going to get treated like everybody else. And number 3, focus on relationships over transactions. You guys get so aggressive and so focused on getting the customer and so focused on making money that you push people away. You cause them to reject you because you're overly aggressive. Okay. You don't need to be that aggressive. If you're a little bit more subtle, if you're a little bit more creative, right, it's going to create space for you to develop some rapport in a relationship. If you're too aggressive too quickly, then of course you eventually have to ask for the business, but you don't have to do that in the first 60 seconds of a phone call, right? And some of you are doing that. You don't even realize it. So get on the wait list. Thank you so much for the kind words. Listen, oh, what time is it? Oh, okay. All right. We don't have time. All right. I'm not going to do a giveaway today. Right? If you guys want me to do giveaways in the future of a Freightpreneur t-shirt, someone who solves problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand, or you want me to do a cash giveaway in the future, let me know in the comments. The last couple of giveaways I've done, there haven't been a lot of people that have participated in it. So I may just completely stop doing the giveaways, right? I've given away hundreds and hundreds of these t-shirts, right, over the years. And I've given away thousands and thousands of dollars in cash in free giveaways there too. But I don't want to waste anybody's time, and I'd much prefer to focus on the Q&A if the giveaways aren't wanted or appreciated or interested. If nobody's interested in it, trust me, I'll save the time, save the money. Okay. All right. Let's jump into Q&A. If you have questions about starting a freight brokerage, becoming a freight agent, or anything in between, right? Let me know in the comments. I will do my absolute best to try to answer the questions. I promise you this, I will not get to everybody's question today. Rarely I'm able to get to everybody's question. I'll try to come back in later and maybe answer in the comments, or come back next Monday with your question and be one of the first people to hit me up. And I will do my absolute best to try to answer that question for you. So hit me up in the comments. And again, while we're doing this, make sure if you haven't hit the like button now, hit the like button and share the stream. If you're on LinkedIn, click repost. Costs you nothing. It'll repost it and let other people know about this free training. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, share the stream. Let everybody know. Truly appreciate it. All right, let's jump into some questions. Let's see, what's Gerald? I've found in sales, it's better to know about the company of your cold calling and become friends with the man, woman whose job it is. Yeah, 100%. That's relationships over transactions 101. I love it, Gerald. Taj asks, hey, Dennis, do you think Google ads would be a good way of getting new customers? I think running paid ads online through Google can be a great way to get shippers. Now, here's the caveat. Number 1, you need to have some cash. You need to have a little bit of money to invest in it, because the way Google works with paid ads is it's a pay per click. So if you run an ad, say somebody says flatbeds in Buffalo, right? Flatbed trucks in Buffalo. They're looking for flatbed trucks in Buffalo. Just a hypothetical search that a shipper might put in, right? If your ad comes at the top saying, hey, we provide flatbed service, click here to get a quote, and they click on that, that could cost you $5, $10, $15, $20 per click. Now, that doesn't mean that they actually ever fill out a quote request. That doesn't mean that they call you. That doesn't mean you're ever going to have a dialogue with them. That's just a click on that ad to go to the page, right? So number one, you have to have a little bit of money. Number two, you're going to have to learn a little bit about copywriting. You're going to have to learn a little bit about how to write a compelling sales ad, a compelling ad to hook the prospect, get them to click, and then on that page, collect their data, collect their information so that you can then lead and follow up with a phone call. So there's a couple of skills there that you're going to need to learn how to do. And then the third one, you're going to need to learn or hire somebody that already knows how to do Google Ads. Okay? But you could probably start with a pretty small budget if you wanted to test it. A few $100, you could probably test and learn what's working, what's not working. But the cool thing about that is that when somebody clicks on that ad and goes to that page and fills out that form and you get a quote request, just a hypothetical, what happens is that person has a need, right? You've already filtered through. That's an inbound lead. So they're already qualified to having a need, right? But now you've got to take that the next step of the process, right? So you still got to navigate that sales process, including building trust, including providing follow-up and all the things that you need to do in order to get a customer. So I think it can be a great way to do it. If I were a freight broker right now, I'd be running paid ads on Google. But I also have a lot of experience in marketing. I have a lot of experience with advertising on Google. I've got a lot of that experience already, and plus I have money. So, so those are the three check boxes I think you would want to learn or have before doing that. But you could start for a few $100 a month and probably test and learn a whole lot. Probably be a good investment of a few $100. Good question, Tej. Thank you. Google can be a great lead gen tool, organic and paid. Okay. All right. Ula Zamir asks, he says, I had the following situation. I called the prospect that participated in state bid. I told her that I help her win the bid by optimizing her supply chain. I asked how they delivered their product from supplier to their place. Then I said that because their supplier is responsible for the transportation, it's a high chance they didn't choose the most effective carrier, and we could help her with that. And she said that the transportation is free for the, I'm not sure what your question is, buddy. You got to give me a question. I know you're giving me a little bit of a background, but I need a question. So follow up to that with a question if you could. You probably got limited in the amount of space, so this might not be the best environment to answer that kind of question. So Kevin Perry says, how do you handle a shipper who says their customer decides who to use to ship out their goods? Well, that means it's customer routed. Okay. Customer routed. If you call a prospect and they say, hey, it's customer routed, or our customer chooses the provider for transportation, that just means it's customer routed. So you can't, there's no sense. That's not an objection. That's a condition. They're different. The condition is the prospect that you're talking to, the company you're talking to, can't make those decisions. They're not telling you no, they're just telling you they can't make the decisions and that you need to go to the other company. So there's only a couple of options here. One, ask them if they'll put you in touch with the company. Most times they won't, because they don't like giving out customer details, right? So they probably won't give you their customer data, but it's worth asking. The other way to do it is to ask them, how do they handle their inbound shipments, right? Their raw materials and inbound shipments, because maybe they pay for inbound shipments, but then it's customer routed for their outbound to their customers. So ask them about their inbound shipments and see if they control the freight there. Sometimes that's an opportunity. Another way to do it is to simply say, listen, has there ever been a time when one of your shippers has struggled to get the product off your dock in a timely manner? Maybe they were supposed to show up and there was delays and it caused an issue on your end. They answer yes. That may be a compelling reason or a great way to connect you getting in contact with their shippers. So those are a few options, but beyond that, there isn't much you can do with customer routage. You need to figure out who the customer is and build a relationship with them. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin, thank you. Okay, Joe Gillen has a question. I have a question. I've been handling truckloads for 7 years and recently started LTL about a year ago, working with so many industries. I haven't nailed down a niche. Would you recommend I find a niche or stay diverse? Well, I'm always a niche guy. Okay. I'm a big believer in riches are in niches, and you need to niche down. Now you need to find a big enough niche with what's called a big enough TAM, a total addressable market, right? You need to have a market that's big enough to really niche down into, but not getting too much in the weeds. I'm a big believer in niching down, but niching down and getting down into LTL. When we talk about niching down, we've got transportation, we've got parcel packages, small package, we got truckload, we got LTL, we've got rail, right? We've got different modes of transportation. So that's one layer in niching down. You can also niche down further. So in the full truckload space, I always recommend niching down into maybe some geography, into a specific industry or a type of equipment, van, reefer, flatbed. But for LTL, it's a little bit different. Now there is van LTL and there is reefer LTL, right? There's probably LTL or partials in flatbed too, but I guess you're probably talking more LTL, like common carrier, small pack, not small package, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pallets, dock to dock, kind of common carrier LTL. So if that's your case, then niching down may or may not be necessary in the LTL space. Now, it probably could benefit you if you become extremely educated in that niche and you can provide some additional value around that niche. So let's say there's a LTL, let's just use reefer LTL because that's a perfect example. Reefer LTL would be a niche, right? Because that's a very specialized niche. And believe it or not, it's a very underserved niche, right? It has a lot of challenges, but for the people that are able to figure it out, there can be a lot of money there. But ultimately, that's an example of how you might niche down. But when you get into LTL, I have a feeling, if you're like an Echo or a Global that has, a pricing on demand where they can get pricing online based on a discount that you set up for them, that's probably something where you can probably hit the whole market that way and use that technology as a way to leverage and the rates as a way to try to generate, some of that LTL business. I was never a big LTL guy when it came to brokering. I just always felt like, it takes the same amount of time to broker a full truckload as it does an LTL, and I make more money on full truckload. So I just focused on full truckload. But I know a lot of guys in LTL that make money. So I hope that helps. Dina, what do you do when you're making cold calls and they're rude to you? Well, Dina, I guess it depends on what you mean by rude. Okay. If they start swearing at me, or if they just are kind of gruff and maybe in a bad mood, or whether they say something, they start whatever, they're mean, or they just give me immediate rejection. I guess it depends on what you mean by rude, right? I don't understand rude, but here's what I can just tell you as a general rule. Life is too short. There are too many prospects out there to deal with rude people. So I wouldn't even sweat it, right? I would just move on. Just let it go and move on, right? The more time you spend with negative people, the more negative it's going to make you and the worse impact it's going to have on your attitude, your psychology, your mental state, right? Your motivation, everything, right? So I probably just avoid those people at all costs. Don't give it a second thought. Just move on. Mike says, would you recommend building an app or just a website if you're a new broker? Just a website. All you need is a website. As a new broker, set up a simple 3, 4, 5 page website, nice and clean, cool design. And the reason why you need a website isn't because people are going to necessarily find you when they search for a freight broker, because, there's a whole Google needs to index you, and you have to have there's a whole thing with SEO and getting ranked for organic ranking. So it's not about that. It's about you reaching out to prospects, and then after the phone call, they go on Google and they pull up you and your company name. If you don't have a website and they can't find you on LinkedIn, it's an automatic red flag, right? That they don't want to do business with you. So you have to have a website, and you have to have a LinkedIn profile, and you should have a LinkedIn profile for your business as well. Okay. So yeah, you don't need to build an app on a phone. Okay. Maybe down the road, maybe you want to entertain that, but put it this way. I had built an $80 million a year freight brokerage without ever having an app on an iPhone. Okay. So it's not a must. And I know a lot of freight brokers and freight agents do extremely well, and they don't have a mobile app, but maybe that's something you want to do down the road. But a website, a business profile on LinkedIn, and a personal profile on LinkedIn that are both optimized, you definitely need those. Brandon asks, who pays the broker directly? Is the broker paid direct deposit? Okay, so the broker's customer pays them, and the broker pays the carrier. Okay, so the shipping customer, the manufacturer, the producer, the importer, the exporter, right? Whoever the company is that's shipping product from A to B, right? That's the broker's customer, and they pay them direct, and then the broker pays the carrier direct. So it's a flow through. $2,000 billed to the shipper. Shipper pays the broker $2,000. Broker pays carrier $1,700. They make $300, broker and carrier gets $1,700, right? So that's kind of the flow through of how invoicing and payments work. Now, a lot of companies, it depends. There are a lot of ACH payments where shippers will ACH you the money. They don't want to process physical checks. It's more expensive to process a physical check. There's a lot of labor, a lot of materials, a lot of time. So they like to do ACH payments. There are still shippers that cut checks. They want to cut checks. So they're going to send you a physical check. But yeah, there are ACH payments that you can get set up with a lot of shippers, but there are still a lot of companies that send physical checks. So it's usually one of those two. Either way, you're going to get it into your bank account once the money clears. There's advantages to the ACH because there's no clearing time, right? It's cleared immediately. A check could take several days up to a week, I guess, depending upon if it's not a state check, for it to clear. So ideally, you would get some sort of a bank wire or ACH for payments from shippers, but that doesn't always happen. Good question. Thanks, Brandon. Gerald asks, could you give me a link for your broker's class? Yeah, if you just want the Startup Freight Broker Bootcamp program, just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. www.freightbrokerbootcamp.com. All right, so it's right here, but leave off the wait list, right? So it's freightbrokerbootcamp.com. And then leave the hashtag and the wait list off. That's the main domain where you can get enrolled in the Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program for freight brokers and freight agents. If you want to get on the Sales Accelerator program, which is the sales coaching program, you want to get on the wait list for that, this is the domain, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. All right, let me scroll here. All right, here's the second part of this question from Ula Zamir. She said the transportation is free for them. I responded to their supplier, just included transportation cost in the final price, but she said she needed to respond to another call and hung up. Was my approach correct? And if I could call her again, how should I? Okay. This is a really intricate, I'd have a whole bunch of questions I'd have to ask you. What you did sounds okay. Okay. It sounds logical, but the devil's in the details. So it's very hard for me to answer a question like this where I can't ask you a bunch of questions first. That's how my coaching program works. When people come into the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator and we do the coaching calls, and if you were a part of the program, you'd come up, you'd explain the situation. Then I would ask you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions so that I could educate myself on exactly what happened. I could break it down, and then I could give you a strategy. I could give you a recommendation. I could ask you additional questions so you can kind of figure out what the challenges are on yourself. So that's kind of how the coaching works, but it's really hard to answer a super intricate question like that without me being able to ask you a bunch of questions. And this just isn't the right format for it. So I'm sorry, but I probably won't be able to help you on this one in this format. Lakeisha asks, how do you handle shippers coming into an overwhelming port? How do you handle shippers coming into an overwhelming port? I mean, you have no control over it. They have no control over it. I mean, it's really just a function of, I'm not sure what you're looking for. I'm not sure that there's an answer to it, right? I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for. Be more specific if you could. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not something you control. So I'm not sure what you're able to do. But give me a little more detail. Maybe I can help. All right, I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. I'm looking for other questions. Okay, John asks, in your opinion, which niches have you seen more long-term success for inexperienced new brokers, or is that a vague question? Well, it's very subjective. It's not vague, but it's subjective. What I think versus what other brokers think could be completely different. I believe that new brokers should focus on full truckload freight versus LTL or rail or ocean, right? International. I believe you should focus on full truckload freight. Now, you can niche down into a variety of different ways. You can niche down by industry, you can niche down by equipment, you can niche down by geography, or you can do a hybrid, which is kind of what I recommend usually and what I did. When I first became a freight broker, I focused on van freight only, Northeast outbound. So if it picked up in New York, PA, New Jersey, all the way up through New England, all the way up through Maine, that corridor there, right? If it originated there and it went west or it went south, that was my niche. Okay. So it was van freight. So there's specific industries that go on van freight, right? There's specific industries that go on open deck flatbeds. There's specific industries that go into refrigerated, right? So I focused on the industries that were van related, that met the geographical, requirements that we had. So I would recommend doing that type of a niche. Now, as far as an industry, there's so many different industries. Okay, there's so many different industries that you can get into. Obviously, food is a staple, right? Food. Yes, it fluctuates with the economy, but it's a necessity, right? People are always going to need food. People are always going to need bottled beverages. People are always going to need toilet paper, right? There's certain industries that are maybe a little more resistant to recessions or economic downturns. Of course, they feel it because when there's less money in the economy, then there's less buying. But ultimately, people are going to continue to buy milk. People are going to continue to buy eggs. People are going to continue to buy the staples. So food is a good one, right? Building materials can be very good, but it's cyclical, right? When there's a lot of money in the economy, when the economy is good, there's a lot of building going on. When the economy's kind of tanks a little bit, the amount of building and development goes down, right? You've got oil and gas. So it's hard for me to give you a specific industry, right? It would be very subjective. What I prefer to do is give you that framework on how to find your own niche, right? And how to figure that out. I like kind of that hybrid approach that I just shared with you. So hope that helps. Joe Almighty, is it okay to use your home address to begin with? Sure. Yeah, you can use your home address, or you could set up an address at a virtual address or a co-working space or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of freight brokers that started from home, tons. Most of the success stories that I've shared with you over the years from past students started from home. So yeah, it's not a problem. Okay, so here's a little bit more specific. When prospecting new customers that are coming through your port to do new business, how do you handle Are you asking how do you move intermodal freight from the port? I'm still lost, Lakeisha. I'm sorry. Maybe it's me. I'm just not understanding what exactly your question is. You said, how do you handle shippers in an overwhelmed port? And then your second one was when prospecting new customers are coming through your port. So are you asking how to prospect shippers? Are you asking how to move the freight intermodal, from the port to the end destination, or from the origin to the port? I'm still not quite sure. Oh, when prospecting. Okay. So when you want to prospect them, well, the hard part, okay, so here's the hard part about prospecting import-export customers. When those customers come through your port, you don't typically even know who they are, right? Because what happens is that freight forwarders, international freight forwarders, are typically contracted by companies that do import-export to do a door-to-door service. So when it's an intermodal service, so the shipper calls a freight forwarder who's licensed to do freight forwarding and international, right? And they have contracts with NVOCCs and ship lines, and they have international agents and all those sorts of things. It's a different business and brokerage. They're similar but different. They give a door-to-door rate. So it picks up in Atlanta, goes to the port on a truck, and then it gets loaded on a truck, or it gets loaded on the ocean vessel, goes across the ocean to wherever it's going to go, goes into another port, and then gets loaded on a truck, and then gets delivered to the final destination. So it's an intermodal movement. It's got a truck, an ocean vessel, and a truck, right? So the freight forwarder handles all that. Now, you don't always know who those shippers are, right? Because it's hard to tell who they are just because they're coming through your port. So a lot of times what'll happen is if you call a shipper and they say, hey, we do international shipping, and you say, hey, listen, I want to handle your drayage component out of the port of, Tallahassee, the port in Florida, right? Then they say, well, we already give that to a freight forwarder. So the reality is a lot of times as a broker, if you want to do business with international on the drayage side, what you're going to have to do is reach out to the freight forwarder, and you're going to have to kind of co-broker, and that freight forwarder will be your customer, right? They're not going to put you in touch with their customers because they're already doing the door-to-door, but you may be able to offer them service on the drayage component. That happens all the time because a lot of times these freight forwarders, when they get orders from a customer, they might get 100, 200, 300 containers that are coming in a month. And they don't want to source all the drayage on that. So what they'll do is they have some drayage carriers that they work with a lot, and then they'll outsource some of that to brokers in a co-brokering type relationship, right? So, they'll be the one that'll be paying you. You'll be sourcing the truck and paying the truck. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that's the direction you were going. If not, help clarify, and I'll try to see if I can give you anything else. Adina says, I don't know if you said it before, but is there a website to see the rates on certain things that are being moved? Like, for example, containers or construction things. Well, Dina, there are rating tools on load boards, right? So the DAT and Truckstop and other load boards have rating tools. They have rating data and market intelligence tools that share rates of what brokers are paying carriers, right? Based upon specific equipment and lanes. Now, I'm not a huge fan of those rating tools. I think those rating tools are okay. I think they've gotten better over the years, but you can't use that to just quote your freight, okay? If you're just using a rating tool and you go on DAT and you see the rate for a van from Buffalo to Atlanta, and then you quote the rate that it says and you add 15% on top, you are going to be wrong 90% of the time. You're either going to be too low, you're going to be too high. And the secret to pricing and brokerage and the pricing in anything is you got to find the sweet spot. You don't have to be cheaper, okay? You don't always have to be cheaper. Matter of fact, I was rarely, if ever, cheaper. But you can't be 30 or 40% more expensive and not have a good reason for it, right? So you can be a little bit more expensive, but you have to be able to sell the value of why you're more expensive, right? So yeah, there are rating tools on the DAT, the DAT, and Truckstop, as well as others that will give you some rating data. It's not based on necessarily commodity, but it's based more on equipment type and geography. So I hope that helps. Ashraf, how can we benefit from AI technology? I don't know, man. There are TMSs and there are software that are using AI, right, to enhance the software that you use. So there's some benefits there that you're going to see and you're going to continue to see that's going to continue to evolve. But as far as you using it, I mean, I think leveraging software that uses AI to save time, whether that be accounting, whether that be lead software like Zoom or Apollo or any of the other software out there, or different TMSs like Ascend TMS, they're starting to integrate AI into it to make the software smarter and more valuable and to save more time. As far as you being able to use it, anytime you have the way that you could definitely use it from a marketing perspective is for you to generate content, right? To write blog posts, to write LinkedIn posts, to come up with ideas for those types of content. I use it a lot in content marketing. I don't have it write my blog posts, but I come up with the ideas. I let it come up with the ideas and ideate. I also let it create outlines for me, and then I write the content. I also come up with ideas, sometimes use it for coming up with ideas for videos or for lives. So it's good for ideation. I'm not, I don't think it's going to be something where you're going to be able to plug it in and it's going to do a bunch of cold calls for you. I don't think that's going to work in the B2B environment. I could be wrong. If anybody else knows another good way to use AI, then hit me up in the comments, or maybe we should talk about it on a live. Torrance asks, how can I contract with a shipper to broker at least 20% of their freight each day with a warehouse shipping up to 20 to 40 loads a day? Is it legal to provide an incentive such as $50 cash back? Okay, well, no, it's not legal to provide cash back to the prospect. Now, if you set up a rebate system where the cash is going back to the shipper, right? If I've seen people do that. I'd even done that in the past with certain clients that asked for it, where you are guaranteed a certain volume of freight. And then once they hit that volume, you give them like a rebate of some sort, but it goes to the company. So that would get deposited in the company account. That's a possibility if you do some sort of a rebate. Now, you cannot give that cash back to the shipping manager or any individual that's in between, right? That's illegal. That's basically like bribery. Okay. Not only can they be fired, but they can also be prosecuted. It's criminal. It's a criminal offense. Most people don't know that, but it's criminal to do that. Right. So yeah, it's bribery, intent to bribe, and it's basically circumventing the company and taking money out of their pocket. Right. So in a way, it's kind of almost like a backdoor embezzlement. Right. So yeah, I wouldn't incentivize shippers with money. Yeah, you can take them to dinner. You can send them to a football game. You can, send them donuts or pizza. Those things are tolerated and acceptable, but you can't send them cash. You can't pay them. Okay. And I think that's tied back to how you were planning on doing that. How can I contract with a shipper to broker at least 20% of their loads? Yeah, a lot of times in brokerage, you're dealing in the spot market. So sometimes it's difficult to get a volume commitment, especially when you're looking for a large volume, right? If you're looking for a larger volume commitment, the way that typically starts is you start in the spot market, you do a really good job. They need more help. They've recognized you're doing a good job. And then you ask for volume in exchange for some sort of other value, whether that be some sort of a discount, or whether that be better terms or some other service that you're going to add into it, whatever the case may be. But yeah, you start out in the spot market and sometimes you can contract for a certain volume. And then if you were going to do that model, I would do the rebate model, which would be something that would incentivize the shipper to potentially give it to you, but you're not giving it to the shipping manager or or the director of logistics, right? You have to avoid that because that's illegal, just so you guys know. Okay. There was a post on LinkedIn not long about it. We talked all about it. It is against the law. It is at best case is a misdemeanor, but can be a felony. I know. And that's shocking to most people, but it's true. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Listen, guys, I appreciate it. What time is it? All right. It's about 1:00. So listen, if you guys are curious about becoming a freight broker, freight agent, you're just looking to get started. Maybe this is the first time you're on the live. Maybe you've kind of been sitting on the fence and debating whether you were going to become a freight broker or freight agent. Check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students. We offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. So you can try it, kick the tires for 60 days. If you're not happy, send us a refund request. We'll refund your money 100%. If you're looking for help with sales and getting shippers, a lot of the questions that I saw here today were about getting shippers and sales. I put a lot of content out about that, a lot of free content. You can check me out on YouTube, and there's a lot of sales training content that I have on my free YouTube channel. But if you're looking for a coach, if you're looking for a help, if you're looking for a real system from A to Z, okay, on how to get shippers in any market conditions, when the market is up, when the market is down, get on the wait list, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. That's my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, right? That's where I work with you, teach you my entire system, help you implement it in your business. It's closed right now. You can enroll, but you get on the wait list and you'll be the first to get notified when it does open up. I think it's going to open up probably in the next 60 to 90 days. I haven't put a date to it yet, but get on the wait list. Every single time it sells out, and every single time I have people beating on my door after it sells out, and they're like, oh, I forgot, or oh, can I get in? And I can't do it. So you got to wait. So get on the wait list, take action when I send out the open enrollment, and I'll see you on the inside. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. Appreciate you guys being here. And we'll see you next Monday on the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Thanks all.